Hey friends, welcome to the School of Hard Knocks with Darcie, a place where we become unstuck from trauma and grounded in our healing. I'm your host, Darcie, and I'm a proud multi-graduate of the School of Hard Knocks. Life has a way of teaching us lessons we never asked for, but here we take those lessons and turn them into healing, strength, and self-leadership. I'm so glad you're here. Let's dive in.
Just a quick reminder. This podcast shares personal stories and lived experiences. It's not therapy. It's not counseling or legal advice. If you need professional help, please reach out to a licensed provider. Hey, School of Hard Knocks, welcome back. Class is in session. I am here with our Rebuilt series season in blooming, and I am joined by Liberty today. Liberty, welcome to the School of Hard Knocks.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm so excited to have you here.
I'm excited to share my story. I hope that it can help somebody.
I'm so glad. Well, let me introduce you guys to who Liberty is. Liberty has just published her first book entitled Redeemed Years from Narcissistic Darkness to Light After. She experienced a Christian marriage to an abusive, narcissistic partner. She seeks to help others find encouragement and freedom, emerging from the darkness of abusive relationships into the light of healing, healthy relationships, and peace from God. I absolutely love that. Congratulations on becoming an author. Very exciting.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, take us back. Let us learn a little bit about you and how you became who you are today.
I think I started out like many churched people, I guess, kind of raised in the church, saving myself for marriage, looking forward to having that marriage that would be a true partnership and we could, help others glorify God together, all that good stuff. And I was kind of getting closer to turning 30 and thinking, where is he? I've been doing all this dating, none of them seem like the one. So started turning to some of the online options, Christian Cafe, Christian Mingle, things like that. And I don't know, like something about turning 30 just made me kind of not desperate, but much more proactive about trying to get married, right? So when I met my ex, it was through Christian Mingle. And, his profile looked just like he had similar goals to me, similar hopes and dreams, went to church, wanted to find a Christian wife. The only thing was that he had some baggage. So I was trying to be very open minded and say, oh, well, he's been married before, he has kids, and, give him a chance to show that he was kind of a new person, that he wasn't towing that baggage around anymore. And so, in our faith, it encourages you to look at people that way. Okay, they're a new creation. If they're in Christ, they're a new creation. So let the old be gone and give them a chance to be a new person, right? And so as soon as we started talking, he was very in sync with what I wanted. He was, oh, you like hiking? I like hiking. Oh, you like singing? I like singing. Oh, do you read a lot? Me too, kind of a thing. And me never knowing what a narcissistic person looked like. I had never heard the term. I had never, learned about toxic relationships or sociopathic people or anything like that. I didn't really realize that was a thing. So I didn't recognize things like love bombing, mirroring my personality, mirroring my hopes and dreams and everything back to me. He was basically bouncing them back to me and sending me a bouquet of flowers in a big vase at my doorstep, like the first week that we started talking, and it was beautiful, and I felt like someone finally cared and I had their attention. And it went from there. It went pretty quickly as far as me moving across the country, a couple states from where I was to where he lived. About 5 months after we met online is when I moved. And I left my whole support system. I left my family. I left my friends, my job, everything, and started over in his state basically so that I could get to know him better. We could start premarital counseling. You know, I was still saving myself for marriage and everything. So I had my own apartment and we worked through months and months and months of premarital counseling with this elderly couple from the church that he went to. And me thinking I'm doing my due diligence. I am making sure that other people are involved and there's wise people helping counsel us and give us their advice and work through the issues before we would get engaged or anything like that. So all in all, it was probably about 10 months of premarital counseling before we actually got married. And right away, on the honeymoon, it was very clear to me that something was very, very wrong. So, I thought it's going to be hard. Okay, I can do hard things and God's here with me and whatever it is, I'm going to just do it, It's going to be really hard. Okay. And a lot of it had to do with the fact that he had kind of a built-in facade or excuse because he was ex-military, he had a brain injury. It was like, okay, well, he must just be having anger management issues because of his brain injury or because of his military PTSD, things like that. So our counselors kind of looked at it that way too. And no matter what happened, they kept kind of encouraging me to go back, to submit more, to be more humble, to serve more. Just pray for him. Pray, 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 pray. And if worse comes to worse and something gets really, really ugly, call the police and make sure he's held accountable. But you always go back. So that's where kind of once I finally got free from it after about 6 years with him, I recognized the church really does not usually know how to support people in these situations, especially if there's not a lot of physical abuse. If it's mostly mental, emotional, sexual, spiritual, they kind of just turn a blind eye to it and they say, God can change anyone. You need to stay. You need to keep praying. And no matter what, your suffering is going to glorify God, but not let us help you figure out how to be safe, how to raise your kids in a healthier situation, So I saw that need right away because of my experience and many, many other people I knew who had been through it in the church environment. They were scared to speak out, and when they did speak out, they usually weren't supported. And the common response is, separate if you really have to until you can pray and reunite, but under no circumstances do you really get divorced. And that is the most common misconception, I think, among church people who are trapped in these situations, is that I can never get a divorce. God will not look at me approvingly if I do that, and neither will all these people that I go to church with. So there's never any reason under any circumstances to get divorced, which isn't really true. So once you dig into it a little more, you'll see that the Bible allows for certain situations, and God's heart overall is for the oppressed and for the abused to have freedom in Christ. So
What was your dating life like before this? I mean, did you go on dates? Have you ever been like in a relationship, like an actual relationship before this?
yeah, I've had probably a 1 year relationship in college, and then I had a longer 2 year relationship after that when I was finishing college.
Okay. And they were nothing. I mean, this just came from out of nowhere.
Yeah, I think that there were some toxicities, so to speak, in other people I had been with. There were unhealthy people. There were people that, didn't value me very much, but not to the extent of, I guess, intentionally causing suffering or tormenting me, which is what happened with this marriage. So,
And what was the religion? What was the religious background that you had married into?
just like non-denominational Christian, just Bible believing Christians.
Yeah, very interesting too, because I've heard, of these things like inside of the church happening. I mean, I've done over 100 interviews, so I've learned some stuff. But my church in particular, now I'm sitting here debating. I wonder if it's different if a man goes and speaks at the church, or if it's different. Because what would, I wonder, a man have been told? Because a man's not supposed to be the one who's humbling and serving. They're supposed to be head of the household, right? So I'm almost wondering what would the coaching have been there? Like, pull it together. You're supposed to be the head of the household and you're supposed to be leading her, and you're not leading her appropriately. It's just interesting to me because my brother went through a semi-public breakup, not married, but public breakup inside of our church. And when he had taken it to our pastor, my brother's a recovering addict, and
Mhm.
so is the woman that he had been dating. And our pastor was just very adamant that if she wasn't ready to give up her ways, that there was no way that either one of them were going to be able to build anything together. So that's why I asked, like, I had wondered if it was just like a certain religion. Like, my husband grew up Catholic, and
Yeah.
Catholic is like, woo, I mean, it's extremely strict. We were together for 6 years before we actually got married. And oh
Mhm.
man, the things that people, would say, and we're just this unclean couple who is living together and doing all of these things we're not supposed to be doing.
Right.
So I think narcissism is something that's pretty well talked about now in this day and age. But if somebody has not, because we cannot assume that everybody knows, because you didn't know that these patterns and things, would you tell somebody the definition of narcissism is?
Yeah, there's a textbook definition. I mean, you can definitely find it in the DSM, the mental health manual that all the professionals use, but it's part of the cluster B personality disorders. So that means that there are other than narcissistic personality disorder, there's like borderline personality disorder, and there's antisocial personality disorder, and there's a couple other ones. Narcissism, I think it's so well known because it's usually very inflated sense of self, very prideful, um, very easy to see that they come first. Their ego is big. They want everybody to notice them. That's your typical narcissist. Like, okay, they are on a spectrum. They may not be completely sociopathic where they just want harm for other people and they have zero thought of anyone but themselves, versus like mildly narcissistic where it's hard for them to have empathy for anyone else. Even if they want to, they find it difficult to put themselves in anyone else's shoes. And most of what they do is for their own self-interest. If it's not going to benefit them somehow, they could care less usually. But keep in mind that there's overt narcissist, which is obviously they're very into themselves. They go to the gym, they look in the mirror all the time, they dress perfectly. That's a more overt narcissist, but there's covert narcissists. So the covert narcissist is kind of flying under the radar. The people who know that they're narcissistic are probably just the ones that they're close to all the time, the ones they live with, right? So behind closed doors, they're the opposite of what they are in public. Maybe in public at church, they look like they care about their wife and their kids, but when the covert narcissist goes home, they really could care less. They're not helping at all with the house, with the kids. They're completely self-focused. They're always the victim. There's a lot of self-pity with a covert narcissist. So things like that are what you can kind of look out for. And it takes seeing patterns over time, right? So I wouldn't have really known what I was seeing unless first I had kind of some sort of a border, what am I trying to say? A basement level, like a foundational level understanding of what a narcissist was. And then over time, I could have started to go, oh, there's a pattern, there's a pattern, there's a pattern, right? Like he had how many chances to ask me where I wanted to eat this time, or he had how many chances to take out the trash and help me when I asked and I was desperate for help, and oh, now this is the 10th time he's intentionally refused to help me so that my workload would be heavier or whatever. Like little things like that, you start to see patterns of how they're number one and you really don't matter in the grand scheme of things. So
So some people actually have like a baseline. right, of who they
Mhm.
are. Can these personalities mix together and become like a hybrid? Because I feel like I know particular people that have, like, the look at me, I'm just this,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
here, let me hold the baby when we're in public, let me
Mhm.
seem like I'm the really good husband in public, and then goes home and it's like, okay, no, make me a sandwich, do the dishes, like, I almost wonder if they can hybrid together.
I think they can, yeah, because it's on a spectrum. So it's really, you have to keep in mind whatever's going to give them their supply. So they call it narcissistic supply. Whatever's going to prop up their agenda or lead to them getting things that they want, that's kind of the key feature throughout, is so watching the patterns and seeing whether they're covert, overt, really sociopathic. You're going to eventually see, like, okay, they are doing this for their own gain. Like, this really didn't have anything to do with me. They'll help the stranger on the side of the road fix their flat tire, but they won't carry groceries for you when you're going home, like, you
Yeah.
can start to notice things like that.
Yeah, I hope we start to notice things like that. Goodness
It took me a
gracious.
while.
Yeah, well, hey, 6 years you said that you were in this
Yeah.
situation, right? So
Yeah.
take us through that a little bit. I mean, at the beginning, it was okay, I'm going to try to work with this and it's going to be hard. But how did it go through and how did you get to the point where you were like, yeah, I can't do this?
hmm Yeah, I think the first year I thought, okay, everyone says the first year of marriage is really hard. So it's going to be hard. I'm going to commit to it no matter what. And hard was not even the word, torturous was the word for the first year. Like, it was, okay, I'm a soldier going into battle every day. That's how it felt. I was just completely worn out, exhausted, striving to be the perfect wife, do all the things the way he wanted them. Okay, if I do the laundry exactly how he likes it, and if I iron his shirt perfectly, and if I make exactly what he wants for dinner all the time, maybe he'll be nicer to me. That was the first year. And then as the next few years went on, we got pregnant. So I went through the worst postpartum period you can imagine, because it was combined with the insomnia, the anxiety, learning how to breastfeed, all of that, with a person who would come in at all hours of the night from going out to bars and shooting darts and doing all this stuff. Um, so I wasn't getting any sleep for the first few months of our son's life, and he was just pushing me further down because it was like, no, I'm not going to help you. No, I'm not going to listen to your concerns. Actually, I'm going to be really cruel to you and rage at you and stuff, not not realizing that I was about to lose my mind. Maybe he did, but he either didn't care or he was act like he was enjoying it. So that was probably the turning point for me, was about 3 years into the marriage. Mm, 2.5, 3 years into the marriage, during the pregnancy and during the postpartum time. It was like, I'm not going to survive this. I just thought, okay, I saw the sun rising another morning, another morning, another morning with no sleep. And I remember just saying to God, like, I can't do this. Just take me out. Like, I'm not going to make it. I was so exhausted. My eyes would just cross, trying to feed the baby, trying to change him. Um, and then his first week of life, after, this is kind of a spoiler from the book, but his first week of life after my parents left town, they had been helping, and my ex was fine that whole week. My parents were there with us, whatever. Couple hours after they left, the baby's crying, he's fussy. I said, "Can you just carry him outside for a minute? I just need a break. Like, he likes it outside. He'll probably stop crying if you take him outside." And he acted all stressed. "I can't do this. I can't do this. I can't. Here, you need to take him. You need to take him. Take him. Hurry, take him. I'm going to drop him." And he basically like chucks the newborn into my hands. His head flies backwards, and I'm supposed to catch him. And I just went to the nursery, sat in the rocking chair with the newborn and just cried all over him. I said, "This is the kind of dad you have? Like, I am so sorry. I am so sorry that this is this way." I'm thinking, am I scarring my newborn by crying all over him? But anyways, so finally after the first few months, I got some medication for depression, I got some sleep medicine, things like that. And I remember the doctor said, "Do you feel safe at home?" And
Mm.
I said, "Yeah," thinking it's that classic definition of, are you being hit? Like, are you being beat? I said, "Yeah." I said, "He just comes in a lot and I can't sleep." And she said, "Well, I'm going to write a prescription pad that he needs to give you the bed to yourself."
No, jeez. How did
So
that
that
blow over?
brought a little bit of relief because I was like, okay, at least I know he's not going to be, tormenting me, coming in and out at all hours. And I barely just got like an hour of sleep, maybe finally, that sort of thing. Um, and then when the baby was about 6 months, we moved closer to my parents, which I thought he would never go for that. And we moved closer to them. And my mom started kind of giving me some memes or something about narcissism. And I was like, and emotional abuse and things like that. I was just kind of looking at it. I was like, okay. And then I started kind of going through my mind of, have I ticked off the list every possible resource that could help us improve the marriage? So, he got offered veterans counseling, he got offered medication, he's gone to counseling with our pastor, he's done XYZ. I've offered everything I can possibly think of to see, is there any chance this can be saved? And the last straw was, there was a week-long retreat for veterans that helped them focus on the Bible to get over their PTSD and stuff. So I thought, if he's gonna go, okay, I have to twist his arm to go. Then he's gonna graduate from that program after a week. And when we were driving back from the graduation from the program, his comment to me was something like, "You know what I realized while I was there? At least I'm not one of those guys who comes home from war and chokes out his wife."
Wow. Yeah, that reasoning, his bad behavior.
It's like, wow, that's, yeah. And then 4 days later, he was back to chasing me around the house to yell at me, call me names, mock me. And I was holding our son. He was about a year old. I was holding him, looking at me, and he had been giving him the silent treatment now. He was a baby. He was mad at me, decided to give the baby the silent treatment. And I was standing about 5 feet away from him. And I said, "Look, you could be mad at me for whatever reason, but this isn't his fault. You can't just ignore him. He's trying to say hi to you and smile at you. You're just ignoring him." And he just started raging at me. He's like, "I'm the leader of this house and blah, 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 blah. And you can't tell me what to do." And the baby's looking at me with these huge eyes, like, what's going on? And that was kind of my I said, okay, like, I'm not going to put my child through the same sort of treatment that I've been going through these last 5 or so years. Why would I do that to him? So I have to figure out at least a way to separate, so I can pray, I can figure out what the heck is going on. But I know in my heart I've given him every possible opportunity to improve stuff, and he's not interested. And I went to my parents. I packed up some essentials. I went to my parents when he wasn't there. I took the baby. I said, "I think I need some legal advice." And they said, "We think you do too." And that
Yeah,
was
I
the
mean, I
start of my new marriage.
wonder, did your parents like have an inclination at all before, or was it not until you moved a little bit
Mm.
closer?
When I left for his state, when I left after dating for 5 months to go to his state, my mom cried buckets. She was
Mm.
like, "This isn't good. This isn't good." She has a real intuition. She's like an empath type person. So she knew, she was like, "This is not going to be good." And then, of course, he so isolated me from them that I wanted to protect his image. I didn't want to say anything bad about him. So he had the opportunity to improve in their eyes. So I spilled it all that night when I went to their house. When I ran away from him with the baby, I said, "Look, this is what's really been going on." And they were horrified. They were like sobbing. And I said, "But I'm breaking my vows, Mom." She's like, do you really think that? I'm like, well, yeah, like I promised. And she's like, just shaking her head, crying, you know? So, and then I went through a couple weeks of just praying for all the truth to come out, to know exactly what I needed to know, and got into this random email account that he said he never used and found all this disgusting smut, like hookup emails and all this stuff from the past, even when I was pregnant, you know, all these plans to meet up with people and do things, disgusting to read. But it freed me because I was like, in the church's eyes, this is adultery and I'm free. And I'm going to convert this separation to a divorce. I'm not going to look back.
Yes, yes. How did the divorce go? I mean, did he try to fight it? Did he want to see the baby? How did that go?
He did at first. You can pretty much expect a narcissistic person to want to win. Anything you put in front of them as a challenge, they're going to want to win. And for that for them, that means even their children are objects to win, right? So that's why you see so many nasty custody cases considered high conflict divorce, because there's someone on at least one end of it that's sociopathic or narcissistic or toxic, and they want to win and they don't care if it costs their children or their ex's lives or anything, right? It's a huge family court issue these days. So for me, I was extremely blessed that it only took about 8 months to finalize the divorce. And I did get sole custody in the end. And that was largely due to agreeing to an expensive psych evaluation for both of us to participate in. And after the psych evaluation, the psychiatrist recommended full custody for me, and the judge went
Wow.
with it. So,
Yeah. My husband and I have been together for 27 years, married for 21. And I have a stepdaughter. I call her
mhm.
mine. I've been with him since she's 5 years old. But me and his ex could not get along. To like, if the world being saved depended on Trinity and I getting along with each other, the world would have been over. I'm so happy to say that for the last decade, her and I have actually become very close. I mean, we talk to each other on a pretty regular basis, and it's been so good for, our daughter. And now we have granddaughters that can see both grandmas that get along with each
Yeah.
other. And she gets along with, my husband, Eric. So when we all are
Hmm.
together, it's this really great thing. But I remember for the longest time saying to her, listen, you need to love your daughter more than you cannot stand your ex. Like, she's not a prize to be won. She's not an
Yep.
object. She's an actual child. And what you're doing is you're putting her through a childhood that she's going to have to heal from when she's an adult.
Hmm.
And I think that that's what it is sometimes I see these things that are happening, and they've happened in my family. They've happened with, people close to me, where it feels like children get used as a tool, as a pawn
Yes.
to hurt the
Yes.
parent. And, that's always been the thing. You need to love your children more than you hate your ex.
But if you say that to a narcissistic person, they don't know. It's like you're speaking another language. How do I love someone that's just a means to an end to me? Like they're just an object to be useful for me. That's the way they look at it, honestly. It's probably about, I think the latest statistic was six, almost 700 children have been lost in the last 5 years or something to abusive parents during a court custody case, you know?
Mhm. Gosh, that is a horrible, horrible statistic. So now you wrote a book.
Mm-hmm.
So the book takes us through like a lot of the ins and the outs of the journey from
Yep.
beginning to end.
Yeah, the first half of it, I wanted it to be more of the memoir part so that people could see themselves in the story. They could say, oh my gosh, I'm not so alone, because it is the most isolating experience. And just to read the first half and for people to say, okay, this is a thing, this is happening. It's not all just in my head, I'm not crazy. And this is really, there are people like this in these relationships, in these marriages, treating the other person like this. So they won't feel so alone after they read the first half. And then the second half is more of a toolkit for getting to freedom, basically. So people can visit shinefromyourshadows.com. That's my website that I started a couple years ago with a lot of practical resources and things. And then they can also look at the second half of the book and take away a lot of that same information from my website that's going to equip them to recognize the abuse, to deal with the abuse if they're still in it, and to leave the abuse and heal from it.
I love that. How long ago did your divorce happen?
It was about a decade ago.
And
Yeah.
how has life changed for you in this last decade?
So that's the other part of why I wanted to write the book, was to give the hope of there is healing, there are healthy relationships out there, and you have to shift your mindset from thinking everyone's horrible, everyone's toxic, to having that hope that there can actually be people who want to partner up with you in this life and be your best friend, you know? And I didn't really want to get married again. I thought, okay, I'm fine. I have peace now. It's just me and my toddler. Like, we're going to be fine. And I felt like God was kind of tapping me on the shoulder, like, okay, just think about getting married again. And I was like, I don't know, you know. And then did some research, read some books on dating after divorce and doing it in a healthy way. And I ended up meeting someone who became my best friend. And he was in a toxic marriage at first, also, just like me. We both had a son from it. So we both brought our sons, and then we had a son and a daughter together.
That is
And
amazing.
yeah. And the thing is, I have a whole new perspective on it now because he actually passed away in August. So we only had 8 years together.
Wow.
Yeah.
Didn't
It's
see
just,
that one coming.
yeah, it makes you just go, okay, life is too short to waste it with people who are treating you horribly, who don't care about you, when you could be spending these years with someone you actually look forward to doing life with every day. Like, that's
Yeah.
possible, you know? And I
Yeah.
got to have it for 8 years and then it was over. So I'm one of the blessed. I'm one of the few who might actually see that it's possible, and it makes you not settle. It makes you not settle for being treated like a doormat or a beating post or whatever. Like, when you know there's hope, there are healthy people out there who want to love you just the way you are. They want to delight in being with you, and they do exist. So that's my message in my grief, is like, I see the night and day of, okay, healthy marriage versus unhealthy marriage. And I want people to know it's possible for them too.
Yeah. Coming into meeting your second husband, how was that? I mean, was it scary? Like, kind of leery? Like, oh, he seems really good, but so did the other one for a little while. Were you more cautious?
Yes, yes. You're very gun shy, and I mean, let's face it, it takes a long time to heal after an abusive relationship. And a lot of people just jump right into the next one. They don't heal. They have all these wounds, they can't see clearly. I had been doing a lot of reading, a lot of counseling, some, therapy, EMDR, things like that. And that helped me recognize I did have complex PTSD. So CPTSD is different than like soldier PTSD. Complex PTSD is when you've been in an environment ongoing where you have to be on edge constantly, constantly. Your nervous system can't get used to being safe. So I had to work on that first. Like, okay, what does it feel like to be safe, to be in an environment where I can be myself and not have to look over my shoulder constantly, right? So both of us had been doing that work. When we finally met up, it was still challenging because I saw flags where maybe I didn't need to see flags. Like, I was like, is this a flag? Is this just normal? He's wounded. He's trying to work through this stuff. What is it? What is it? What is it? So I think it helped to both do our healing separately before we met, but also we were doing premarital counseling with a really wise pastor guy who could see a lot of things that we couldn't see. And he could kind of point out, like, okay, this isn't really a huge flag. This is just normal things you all need to work through together, like talk it through together. So once we kind of learned how to communicate through our triggers, because we would trigger each other. We triggered each other our whole marriage, but that commitment to communicate through it, be vulnerable, work through it together, like tackle the issue together instead of tackling each other during the issue.
Yes, that's very smart. That is very smart. Oh my goodness.
But it was
I'm
scary for a little while. But
Yeah,
yeah.
I can't even imagine because he, from what you said, was also coming out of a toxic relationship.
Mhm.
So, that's the thing. One of my sisters, she has spoke openly on the podcast about being in a domestic violent relationship, and that was her thing. Is even the littlest thing that her next boyfriend was doing, it would set something off. Why is he in the
Mhm.
garage? Why did he go to the garage and have to bring his phone? I'm like, well,
Mhm.
honey, maybe it's because he's listening to music while he's working on the
Mhm.
vehicle, but it was
Yeah.
like everything. Why is he staying gone so long at work? Why hasn't he? It was like every single thing. And it wasn't her like being over the top. But that's the thing, like you said, these getting into a relationship so rapidly after coming out of such a bad one,
Mhm.
how could you reset your nervous system that quickly? You need to do like a reset before you jump into something else.
Mhm. For
Yes,
sure.
absolutely. Well, I am very sorry for the loss of your husband.
Thank you.
It
Yeah.
hasn't been that long. How are you
No.
doing?
Yeah. It's I have a lot of kids in the house by myself, so
Hmm.
solo parenting when you're trying to grieve, when the kids are trying to grieve. But I have that perspective of at least I got to be loved and loved
Yes.
in return. And I'm really grateful for that. And that carries me and the kids through a lot of challenges, I think. So,
Yeah. Grieving is the hardest thing. I mean, you think that you go through hard things in life until you lose like a pinnacle person in your life.
yeah.
I'm 7 months into losing my dad.
Oh, I'm
And
sorry.
my
Yeah.
husband and I took care of my dad for almost 4 years. He was a
Okay.
survivor of a workplace shooting. So
Yeah.
the workplace shooting left him with a traumatic brain injury. And after
Mm-hmm.
he spent 2 years in brain rehab, he came home to us. And unfortunately, 7 months ago, I found him no longer with us.
Yeah.
So, I've lost people in my life, but then when you lose like a person that's like your person, that is a
Mm-hmm.
different level of grief. And it's
Yeah.
horrible and it's painful. And, I've just learned in the journey of self love with myself that I have to give myself grace and
Yeah.
I have to give myself time. And it's never going to go away. I mean, it doesn't matter how much I cry or scream or beg. God is never going to say, I did not realize this was going to impact Darcie like that. I'm going to put Bill back. So I just have to come to the conclusion that that chapter has been closed, but that doesn't mean that I can't be reread. It doesn't mean that I can't look at memories and talk about my dad. And,
Yeah.
like I will never ever forget. I mean, he was my dad for 46 years,
Yeah.
and that was like the biggest loss of my life after going through what I thought was the worst thing in my life, which was him being shot. Turns out him dying was worse than that. So
Yeah.
now I'm 7 months in, and it's like, well, there's no time limit on healing and there's no time limit on grief. However, there is a time limit on our life. So
Yep.
I'm making it through it and giving myself time and grace and crying when I need to and, maybe smashing a plate or a glass every now and then because the release feels so gosh darn good. And
Yeah.
just knowing the same that you said, my dad could have died 6 years ago when he was shot, but God gave us that extra time together. So, like
Yeah.
how you're feeling that blessing and being able to feel that love and to give that love, I'm feeling the blessing that God gave me that kind of extra time when He could have taken him on that day. So,
Right.
it's really about perspective and how we
It
perceive
is.
things in our life and choosing, actively choosing to heal from things properly. It
Mm-hmm.
benefits us and it benefits every single person around us, even people who are going to be listening. I
Yeah.
mean, grief is just not it. It is the hardest thing ever, but you can make it through it and you will make it through it. It's just,
Yeah.
it's not awesome.
I and they're like looking for the blessings in it, I think, because I knew after I left the abusive marriage, I knew that God didn't waste anything. And now that takes on a whole nother level of meaning because it's like, okay, even in grief, he turns beauty to ashes somehow. And when you start seeing that that's how he operates, you look forward to seeing how that's going to turn out.
Isn't that something? I mean, that's how you can tell when you're getting grounded in healing. Because
Hmm.
it's like, okay, I've gone through some hard stuff. I've also made it through some hard stuff. So what else do you got? Throw some blessings over here every now and then. But
Yeah.
what else can life bring? I
Yeah.
mean, life is a very interesting, hard ride for a lot of people. And there's lots of
Yeah.
dips and curves and corners and all of that jazz. But loving yourself, taking accountability for yourself and how you choose to heal. I mean,
Yeah.
the way you're choosing to heal and being open and talking about your life is going to help your children.
Yeah.
That kind of like tender strength, not that over, we just brush it to the side and forget about it. That's never healthy. But that
Yeah.
tender strength of, listen, this is what we're going through and we're going to make it through, but it's not going to be pretty it's going to look like a Picasso for a little while,
Yeah.
very like kind of messy, but the end
Right.
result is going to be incredible.
Yeah, I have a friend who has gone through similar domestic abuse, and then she was like traumatically raped in an airport and had a brain injury from it and
Mm,
everything. And she is one of the most incredible people because her comment to me was, people just don't know how to suffer.
mm,
And I said, that's true. Most people spend their lives avoiding suffering of any kind. They run away from anything uncomfortable or painful. But it's like, if you're looking at the big picture of how God weaves everything together, Romans 8:28, he works all things for the good of those who love him and
yes.
are called according to his purposes. Do you really believe that when you're in the middle of the valley of the shadow, you're going to come out stronger somehow? He's going to grow something from it. It will not go in the trash. It will not just get wasted. It's not for nothing. When she
That
said
is
people just
so
don't know how to
important.
suffer, I was like, wow, okay.
You just said that, and I was like, girl, you need to send her my way, and she needs to be on the podcast.
Right?
Because that's true. That is true. People just don't know how, that's the other thing, too, is no one's ever going to suffer the way that Jesus did.
Right.
Like we have to go through these things and no regrets. I don't
Yeah.
regret anything I've gone through in my life, anything I've been faced with, because the woman that I have become now, I
Yeah.
don't even recognize because I've never been her before. And I
Right.
really like her. Like, I really like her.
Yeah.
I'm really proud of her, Like,
Yeah.
this particular person has gone through some hard stuff. And she's just sitting here like, who else can I like bring on to tell a story and help? And let's share this because we can do it. We
Yeah.
can do it. Not everything is going to be rainbows all the time, but would we really like rainbows if we saw them every day?
Right.
Sometimes we got to go through some hard stuff in order to be like, whew, I'm so happy to be at the top of the mountain again, or at least
Yeah.
trekking up the side of it because the valley can be really dark.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for being so open and sharing everything here. If people want to find you, I know you said you have your website. Is there other places people can find you?
I am on Instagram, Shine from Your Shadows also. So I think it's shine from underscore your shadows. And then obviously the book, you can find it on Amazon or Westbow Press. There's digital downloads and the physical copy as well. But if people can't afford it and they really need the resource, I do have a few limited digital downloads for free. All I ask is that you leave a review on Amazon if I give you a free digital download. Um, and yeah, the website is shinefromyourshadows.com. There are a lot of resources, everything from identifying red flags to how to deal with the narcissist if you're still in the situation with them, to going to court with them and how to hopefully succeed in court. So all kinds of resources like that on shinefromyourshadows.com. Yeah.
I love that. Thank you so much for being here with us today. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate you too. Thank you for all your resilience and for hosting a podcast like this.
Thank you for that. All right, School of Hard Knocks, you know what to do when this episode is over. Go and find Liberty on all of her places. Follow, like, share, comment, do all of the things. There's more than enough room at the top of this mountain for all of us. And as always, when you are walking with the Lord, healing is always possible. We'll see you guys in the next episode. I'd like to thank you for sharing your time with me today. And I'm so proud of you for stepping into your healing journey. Please share this with every single person that you know. I'm here to make the biggest impact possible, and I can only do that with you by my side. I hope you hit that follow button and you save me to your library so you never miss an episode. We just took another break out of your wall, and remember, with God, healing is always possible. I look forward to seeing you on the next episode.